Assalamu alaikum students. I am Asra Nafees and today in this video we are going to talk about active and passive listening. Let's see what is listening first. Listening is the act of hearing a sound and understanding what you hear. So in simple words we can say that listening is perceiving or receiving sound signals and make meaning from them by paying attention. Then what is hearing then? Hearing is the act of perceiving sound and receiving sound waves or vibration through your ears only. So we can say that hearing is just perceiving or receiving of sound signals, and these sounds do not process by the brain to decode its meaning. Hearing is one of the five senses and it is continuous process. You have to hear whether you like it or not, unless you have some hearing problem. Now we are going to discuss about the differences between listening and hearing. The first difference is hearing is receiving or perceiving of sounds only, whereas listening is the receiving of sounds and making meaning out of them. Second difference is hearing is a continuous process happened all the time, while hearing turn out as listening when we pay attention to what we hear. The third difference is, on one hand, hearing is an involuntary act. It cannot be controlled by the individual. On the other, listening is the voluntary act, can be controlled or regulated by the brain. The fourth difference is, in hearing, only ears are involved. But in listening, different senses like hearing, seeing, and even the sense of touch is involved. The fifth difference is hearing is a subconscious process of receiving sounds, while listening is a conscious process of receiving or perceiving sound. The last difference is hearing is a physiological process where ears perform a bodily function only. However, listening is a psychological process where ears as well as brain is involved in a process of making meaning. Now we are going to discuss the types of listening, that is active listening and passive listening. Let's discuss one by one. Passive listening is one where the receiver doesn't provide feedback or ask questions and may or may not understand what is being communicated. So in simple words, we can say that passive listening takes place when the listener hears just for the sake of listening. He or she does not reciprocate his or her response, reaction, or feedback. Listening to news, listening to songs while driving are the examples of passive listening. Another type is active listening. Active listening is where the receiver demonstrates through interruption, asking questions, nodding, and giving responses as a sign that he or she understands what is being communicated. So in simple words, we can say that active listening takes place when the listener listens carefully to reciprocate his reaction or response. Active listening makes the communication two-way process. Job interview, group discussion are the two common examples of active listening. Now, non-verbal techniques of active listening. The first one is maintaining eye contact. Maintaining eye contact tells how confident and comfortable one is while communicating. The next one is nodding. Nodding is shaking your head in a right to left direction or forward to backward direction to say yes or no without using words. Third is appropriate expression. Expressions are necessary for listening. It shows that one is able to understand the speaker's feeling and emotion in communication process. The fourth one is body posture, like the way one sits or walks that communicates their confidence and the comfort level. For example, If you are sitting in a relaxed manner and a bit leaning toward the speaker, this shows that you are interested in the conversation. Uh, Whereas if you are sitting overly stiff, that depicts you are very nervous. Next is verbal techniques of listening. The first one is giving a time to time response. That is, listener exchange his or her role and speak time to time. Second is paraphrasing what the other person said. What you have listened, just paraphrase that to show that you have understand what the speaker have spoken. The third is if something is not clear to you, then ask for clarification. This also shows that you are actively listening. Third is providing feedback. After listening, speaker express your thought and feeling about the subject and give feedback. Lastly, asking open-ended questions. Open-ended questions shows that listener is interested in knowing the details. Now, it is a time to discuss the differences between active listening and passive listening. The first difference is passive listening is one-way communication because only speaker puts effort in the communication. Active listening is a two-way communication because both the speaker and the listener are involved in the process of communication. The next difference is passive listening demonstrates negative attitude of the listener toward the speaker, whereas active listening demonstrates positive attitude of the listener toward the speaker. Third difference is passive listening is quite similar to hearing. Here, listener pay little or no attention to the speaker. But in active listening, listener is actively paying attention and carefully listening everything. Lastly, in passive listening, listener does not provide any feedback and ask questions. Whereas in active listening, listener does provide feedback to the speaker and asks several questions. So I would conclude this video by saying active listening and passive listening are the two ways we listen to people. The main difference between active and passive listening is that active listening is the listening and reacting, whereas passive listening is listening without reacting. Thank you.